What's up, everybody? Well, I got another gameplay video for you guys today. And today, we're going to finish up Hellblade Senua Sacrifice on my main computer here. Now, it consists of a 13900KF, a RTX 4090, MSI Gaming Trio to be exact. We got a Asus 790 Gaming E motherboard. Got 32 gigs of 6400 CL32 DDR5 memory. And it's cooled by a custom loop. The CPU block is a Velocity 2, and the reservoir is a Thermaltake, I can't remember the exact name, but it's a Thermaltake RGB reservoir. It's the biggest and newest one they've got. And then a 420mm radiator with Noctua industrial 3000 RPM fans. I don't ever let them go that high, but only if the temperature goes super freaking high, like during a Cinebench run or something. But during gaming or whatnot, they're quiet as can be, just like they're being right now. This is literally like pretty much game volume, almost. The loudest thing, honestly, is this when the power supply turns on, which I'm surprised it does at all. It's a 1600 watt. It still turns the fan on once I'm using about 600-700 watts, so makes sense that it would get a little warm and need to cool down, right? Anyway, let's stop blabbing on, and let's hop on into the game.
Well, now we're finally on my main computer, so let's just start off on low, even though it's absolutely asinine to do that on this kind of computer, but we're just going to do it anyway, for science. Anyway, let's get into the game and see how it does. My guess is similar to ultra-wide, only at 4K. Well, now let's just get ourselves some gameplay. And yeah, besides when we just started our shadow play, we're getting good FPS, about the same 200 and whatever we were getting with the 5800X3D and the 3090 at 1440p. Only difference is now we're at 4K, so that is damn impressive. This 4090 is an absolute monster. No, it still stutters a little for that. I guess no matter how powerful your computer is, it still stutters a little when it's loading in shit into the background. Anyway, why don't we move on to the next graphics setting? Now it's time for some medium, so let's scroll through the settings really quick, and then we can get back into the game. Because I'm excited to get to maxing this thing out and seeing what it can do, you know? Anyway, to the game. Now it's time for medium. I got 4K here on my main computer. Let's just do our little beach walk again here. Apparently we're still getting a humongous amount of FPS, especially considering this is only a 120 Hz TV, so. Which is the max of HDMI 2.1 anyway, so even if I had a higher refresh rate, it wouldn't matter. Because the one lame thing about the TV is it's a TV, so it's not going to have a display port. And I don't even know if there's a display port that can go higher than that for 4K yet. Maybe there is. But I don't see myself upgrading from this TV anytime soon. Not unless it gets like burn-in or it just breaks all of a sudden randomly. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Although I said that, and my Sony or my Samsung in my bedroom is getting big black blotches all over it, but that was more of a mid-range TV, and this is definitely a lower-end, high-end TV, if that makes sense. Because I'd call it high-end, but, I mean, it kind of is, but it's at the bottom of the high-end, because there's lots of bigger versions with better specs, and there's like 8K now, and probably different versions of OLED that are better than this now. But as far as I'm concerned, it is still fantastic, so don't need to upgrade. No interest. Not unless it breaks, like I said, but anyway, why don't we go ahead and move ourselves on to the next graphics setting? Well, now we're going to do high, so of course we're going to scroll through all of them real quick here. just so you guys can see the settings. And of course we'll do DLSS and ray tracing at the end. But now it's time for us to go back into the game. Well, now it's time to do high. So again, let's walk around on our little beach here. Yeah, even on high, 140 FPS at 4K, very nice. And it's getting close to 100% usage, so the CPU's not bottlenecking it at all, really. Which still can happen, surprisingly. A lot of people don't believe me. But even though it bottlenecks usually, it doesn't matter because it's getting like hundreds of FPS more than my 120 anyway, so it affects me in zero ways. But in certain games like Cyberpunk, my 5950X was preventing me from getting like even over 100 FPS in certain games like Spider-Man and Cyberpunk, and I'm sure there'd be more to come. I think it even held me back in Gotham Knights. I definitely think I got better FPS on my 4090 with my 13900KF. And I don't have it overclocked per se, but I'm pretty much letting the motherboard figure out how badass it can make it for the cooling it's got. I noticed that when I got a 41K Cinebench run, I'm like, that's not stock. Well, now we're on very high. So let's get through these settings real fast here, and then we can get back into the game and see how high does. But should still be very good. And there we go. Let's go find out how it looks and how it plays. Well, alright, now let's just go get ourselves some very high gameplay here. Still drops kind of way above, or way below 120 when you're looking at the water and stuff back there, but besides that, wow, we're even up over 120 even on very high. No ray tracing yet though, but still, I'm impressed. I'm always impressed every game I play on this damn computer. It's awesome. Costs a damn pretty penny, but it's damn fucking sweet at the same time. And it's exactly what I wanted. I chose to spend that money. It's not that much to me anyway. So let's just walk over to our little turnaround spot, shall we? Any second now it should stutter as it loads in all the fog over here. Yep, there it was a little bit ago. It's not that noticeable, honestly. But alright though, why don't we go ahead and move on? So now it's time to start some ray tracing, so we'll start off with ray tracing on low and work our way up, just like we did on the rest of the resolutions. Alright, and now, why don't we go ahead and get into the game. Here we go, ray tracing on low. At least looking at the wall, we dropped way under 100. But still over 60, so. Now with 4K, 4K is like getting a car to go over 200. Anything over 60 is like fucking awesome and looks way more badass. But I'm sure we could just turn on some DLSS if we wanted this to be closer to 120 all the time. But I'm still deciding if I want to use DLSS or not during my settings. I probably will, but we'll have to wait and see what I decide. So far, so good. We stayed above 60. Hell, even over, well, we're over here anyway. We're getting real close to 90. Or not close to 90, close to 100. We're at 90. You can't be close to something if you are at something. That just doesn't make any sense at all. Oh, we dropped down to 67 as we were loading in the fog and whatnot. Always get stuttery when we get over to this part, so. Anyway, though, this looks like a good spot to stop, so let's go ahead and move on to the next ray tracing. Here we go with some medium ray tracing now, so of course we gotta go through all the settings just real quick. There you can see right there, we're on medium ray tracing. And there we go. That is the bottom. So now let's go see how it does on medium. Well, here we go with some ray tracing on medium now. So we'll just do our regular little walk to the other side of the beach and see what kind of FPS we get along the way. Wish that could have been a little more interesting and gotten farther and actually like fought and done some other stuff, but since I don't know this game, I don't want to get in the predicament where I go into a cave or a building or something and just get stuck in there for 10-15 minutes. Possibly longer, because then I can't get good gameplay footage for you. Seeing as though indoors and in caves and whatnot gets us way more FPS generally than when we're out in the open like this. And I figured there's lots of light and whatnot for ray tracing and whatnot, so I figured this would be a great place to just walk around. And it's easily repeatable. I can just walk down pretty much the same exact fricking way every single time, and we can keep just looking at the FPS and go, oh, well that's different. And you can look at the different things popping in and out and whatnot. And just pretty much live test the settings so we can see all of them. That's why I do this. Alright, moving on. Now, finally, we got to high ray tracing, so let's do this real quick before we do DLSS. And then after we're done with all of that, we'll do my settings. Alright, already at the bottom, so already can get into the game. And here we go. Ray tracing on high. And at least during the beginning here, while we're waiting for Shadowplay to finish booting up, we did drop a little under 60, but I don't count that. Shadowplay makes it stutter and whatnot at the beginning like that. But we are just barely above 60 here. We're only at 75. But which is still plenty for a game like this, don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting it to be a little faster. But it's not like 4K is easy to run, especially when ray tracing's involved. Well, alright. We're basically at our little turnaround spot, so now why don't we go find out how DLSS does. Now for some DLSS. So getting on into the game here. Or before we get into the game, I should say. There we go. DLSS quality right there. And everything else is exactly the same except we turned ray tracing back off. I'm probably going to run that at the end though with DLSS, but only time will tell. Well, here we go with some DLSS on quality. Alright. Now it's time to go on to the next DLSS setting and find out how it does. DLSS balanced now, so a quick jaunt through these settings here. As you can see, we're on balanced DLSS right there. And other than that, just like we were before. Wouldn't change any settings on you now, that would be silly. But now, back into the game. Well, now we're going to do some DLSS balanced gameplay, so let's do our normal walk. Walk on the beach. Well, it does really good with the DLSS, that's for sure. Both balanced and quality both look great and get lots of FPS. Now, I'm very curious about at the end when I try including the ray tracing into the mix. Will we be able to stay above 100 FPS? My guess is it'll be very similar to how it was on my 5800X 3D, if I can talk properly, for crying out loud, and RTX 3090 computer, since that one's on a lower resolution. Even though this GPU is way more powerful, it's way harder to run 4K than it is ultra-wide, obviously, so a lot of the times they kind of get similar FPS, and that's cool with me. That just means, yeah, resolution's lower, but I'm used to the frame rate on both of them, you know? Anyway, moving on. And now, last DLSS setting anyway, we're going to do DLSS Performance. So there we go, right there, Performance. And we've just reached the bottom, so why don't we go see how it does and how it looks. Here we go, DLSS Performance now. So let's walk down the beach one more time before we get into my settings anyway. Yeah, very similar FPS. Now, I think on my other computer I hit 200 for a little bit. But I don't know if we're going to do that at 4K. But we hit 190 for a couple of seconds there. Alright, now let's go move on to my settings now. Now, let us go ahead and do my settings. So, pretty much just max game out, ray tracing on high, and DLSS on quality. I think it can handle it no problem. It's a 4090 and a 13900K after all, with DDR5. Pretty fast DDR5 too. Not super fast, it's much faster, but anyway, let's get into the game. Alright, let's do my settings now. And yep, very similar to the other computer, right at around 100 FPS, which is plenty for a game like this as far as I'm concerned. We got our ray tracing, we got everything pretty much maxed out, and we got 4K. And the reason I try to max stuff out at 4K is it's a lot easier to see imperfections when you're on a 4K screen, especially when you're on a 4K TV and you're sitting relatively close like me. Like, I don't have to move my head side to side to see anything, but I do have to move my eyes around. At least when I'm playing a game, but the thing is so large, it makes it really easy to see people in first-person shooters and whatnot, so I actually surprisingly do better on this TV than I do on any of my other high refresh rate, smaller monitors. I think it's also the frickin' fact that it's got basically instantaneous response time, so my mouse feels like an absolute, like it's connected right into my hand, like it's a part of my body, and it's pretty fucking awesome. And there's no ghosting or nothing. Well, alright. We've gotten to our little stopping spot here. Why don't we move on to camera now?
Well, alright. Let's get some camera gameplay in now. Still with my settings, of course. And now we're not recording or anything, too. Even Shadowplay, I think, takes a little bit of FPS away. Yeah, they made the sound in this fucking game insanely good. Well, we're still staying around 100-ish FPS, a little over, in fact. Completely maxed out with maxed out ray tracing. We just got some DLSS on quality, so we're not at 4K anymore, but who really cares? As long as you get good FPS. Go take a little walk by the ocean now. Oh, this was a big ass boat. But no longer. Huh, I guess there ain't nothing to do back here. Still interesting to explore it, though. And more pieces of boat. Alright, I think that's probably good enough on the camera gameplay there. So, why don't we go ahead and go wrap this video up? Well, alright guys, that is a wrap for Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. I almost forgot what it was there for a second. And it did absolutely great, no matter what. The only time I ever saw it drop below 60 was when we had ray tracing, everything maxed out with no DLSS or anything. And I think that was just what we were recording. Sometimes when we start the thing, it stutters and lags for a couple of seconds before the little window saying Windows has, or starting, or I think it says recording is started, to be specific. And then it like flies off to the side. Whenever that GUI menu pops up in a lot of games, it stutters the hell out of the game for the first little bit. But anyway, besides that, it did great. So this game can be played on the Steam Deck pretty well, the Asus G15 pretty well, and it obviously plays great on both of my desktops. So it's a very great game. I'd highly recommend it. From what small amount I've played, it looks like it's going to be fucking awesome. Can't wait to play it, but I got so many other damn games to play first. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and until the next video, peace out, guys.